with the Abyssal Void releasing in just a few days, I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know about this update, along with how you can prepare yourself to be as successful as possible. Now, firstly, you may have noticed this board right here, which says descend into the abyss in 6 days. Now, obviously, that is the release date of the dungeon. And to be more specific, it releases on Friday at 2 p.m. Central Time. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are very close to this update. And recently, we have gotten a lot of leaks, but the first thing I want to show you is this trailer. This trailer just kind of shows, like, the themes of the Abyssal Void, along with this, like, insane shot of the dungeon, and then, like, a literal dragon boss at the end. And then, of course, with the icon and all of that stuff. And I definitely think that the most common dungeon to the Abyssal Void is Enchanted Forest, which is like a very void-themed dungeon and actually shares a similarity in the bosses. But along with the trailer, we actually did get a few leaks for this dungeon, with this first one being like kind of the room showcasing a lot of murals. This other one, which looks like a very similar shot to Gilded Skies, but honestly looks really sick. We got this other one here just being kind of another angle, and this one actually showcasing like a character from the dungeon. This looks like definitely a warrior set. And then we got 2 more right here, just kind of showcasing the same areas, along with this one actually having like enemies in the dungeon. Now, every single day, Dungeon Quest is posting like a new leak, which is definitely interesting. Now, you guys may have seen like this dragon boss that was showcased in the trailer, which undoubtedly looks identical to the Enchanted Forest dragon. So man, they're actually bringing back a dragon boss, which was actually like a fan favorite of Dungeon Quest. So yeah, I truly think that Enchanted Forest is going to be a very, very similar dungeon to this Abyssal Void, which of course is Dungeon 17. Also, you may have noticed that I got 4 items, and I'm gonna get into this a little bit later. And by a little bit later, I mean right now. Because like literally just an hour ago, Dungeon Quest dropped a +1 loot drops forever update. Which, you know, it's kind of self-explanatory. We forever will get an extra item, which is like the best update Dungeon Quest has ever released. And this also does stack with the extra item game pass, hence why you saw me get 4 items in that hardcore run. Now, I'm definitely gonna talk about this later because I think this hugely will impact the Abyssal Void. But for right now, what you need to know is that we're getting a lot more items from doing runs, and it's gonna make the dungeon a lot better to progress through, and a lot less repetitive. But if we go back into the Dungeon Quest Discord server, you may have noticed this development completion meter, and I've talked about this a lot in videos, but I just want to briefly talk about it right now because it's really what's going to be happening with this dungeon. So right now, what Dungeon Quest is doing and what the Dungeon Quest team is currently doing is really just testing this update. And I do believe that this dungeon will be a very well-tested dungeon because Dungeon Quest, they have quite a bit of testers and they seem like pretty competent people. But I guess we'll see with this dungeon how glitchy it will be. But another sentiment that's just been kind of brought up a lot is that this dungeon will not be too difficult for players with the best set. And according to some of the people inside of Dungeon Quest, this next dungeon is actually possible with just like Yokai Peak's gear. What I mean by that is that you do not actually even need a craftable weapon to be able to do this dungeon. Now, this is something that is massively, massively important because if we look at the craftable weapon, which is the best weapon in the game, you can see that it does 399 damage. Now, if we look at the regular legendary, which of course is how it's meant to be soloed, you can see that even with this literal God Pot legendary, it pales in comparison to this Oracle's Ascendant. So for a player like me who does have like the best set in the game along with the craftable weapon, this dungeon will not be too difficult. However, to the people who didn't actually go and grind the legendary weapons, it will be quite a bit more difficult. Because if we even just go and compare damage without the craftable, I do around 66 Q, and with it I do 80 Q. That is a huge difference. And especially for the next dungeon, that will be the difference between 2 and 3 shotting the mobs. And to be a bit more accurate, I do around 41.89 Q with the craftable, and without it, I do a mere 34.14 Q damage. So I cannot stress it enough. If you do not have the craftable and you're close to getting it, grind out this weapon, because trust me, for this next dungeon, it will save you so much work. However, past insane mode, the craftable craftable will literally lose all of its value. Like when it goes from going to insane to nightmare mode, this craftable will actually be worthless and will do literally nothing for you, which is where this dungeon will be more difficult. I think the difficulty in just beating insane will not be nearly as hard as going from insane to nightmare mode. So having the craftable will give you a head start. However, in the long run, it may not be the best. Now, the next point that I really want to get into is how you guys can prepare for this update. Because trust me, this will not be easy. And only the most skilled and successful players who really know what they're doing are going to be able to do the dungeon. And especially for you people who are like under level 225, maybe you don't have a team, listen up to this message. So firstly, if you have not already, join the Dungeon Quest Discord. It will be linked in the description of this video, but this is like the most important step, because this of course is going to tell you everything dungeon related, but what it will also do is it will allow you to find like-minded people who are looking to, actually do the dungeon. You can see like in Yokai Peaks, there's a lot of different like raids that you can join. However, for kind of like a more permanent solution or something that will help you more, if you go into like the guild advertisement section, you'll see that a lot of people are promoting like strong teams that you can join. Well, strong maybe not, but like teams that you can join. Like for example, this team right here requires that you have a 220 plus account and a full purple set with a craft and a ledge spell. So if you do meet these requirements, you can get into what is seemingly a pretty powerful team. This is how you're going to be successful in this dungeon, because it's simply not enough to just go into like this join party option and just find like a random global party. I promise you that if you do this, I will 100% guarantee you will never win in this update. You will completely fail if you do this. You want to make sure that you're looking for a competent team which really matches your skill, which means that if you're a player with like a craftable weapon, don't find people who don't have that. Find people who have like the actual craftable. Find people with powerful sets. And of course, find people who are skilled at the game, because this dungeon will be brutal and only the best of the best players will succeed in it. And yeah, I'm not trying to fearmonger anything, but I just want to give like the honest truth. Now, I mentioned that I would talk about the +1 loot update a little bit later in the video. Also, what the frick? What is going on? But you can see like it literally says in the title, +1 loot. This is a massive update. Now, how this will affect the Abyssal Void is that it's going to be much less RNG reliant. And I don't even really need to explain this. Just logically thinking, if you're getting more items per run, then it inherently would mean that you would be getting better drops. You of course would be dropping more legendaries, more collectibles, and you will obviously be progressing through the dungeon much faster. So what I think this actually implies about the next dungeon is that of course in length it's going to be like quite a bit of a longer dungeon. It's not going to be a short dungeon like Enchanted Forest. Yeah, a good comparison I've seen thrown around is that this is like the void version of Gilded Skies. And I already talked about Enchanted Forest and how it is very similar, but I think this dungeon will also mirror a lot of similarities with Gilded Skies. And I think that by releasing this +1 update, they're intending for this dungeon to not be beaten as quickly, because of course that's how it's gonna work. If the dungeon is a lot longer, that means you're just automatically not gonna be getting as many items because you can't complete as many runs. So yeah, I think this will be like kind of a lengthy dungeon like Yokai Peak, and also have a few different bosses rather than just 3. Now, the biggest thing I want to cover in this video is this right here, the legendary spell. I'm gonna be 100% honest that I think the legendary spell is gonna be replaced. There have been a lot of rumors about this, and for the most part, I believe them. I really think that the EIF and EIR are gonna be completely replaced. So what this of course means is that these different like legendary items will be completely devalued. Yeah, let's be honest, if a new legendary spell were to drop, these EIFs and EIR would be practically worthless. And that unfortunately is what I think is going to happen. So my biggest tip to you guys who like have a bunch of different legendary spells, I would personally say pawn them off. I'm not guaranteeing that the legendary spell will be replaced, but I'm thinking it will. And if you're hoarding these legendary spells thinking they'll go up in value, trust me, now I think is the time to sell. And of course you can go and trade them off for items. However, the biggest thing I would recommend you trade them for are like different cosmetics and boosts, because people in this game will literally literally pay so many Robux to be able to get legendary spells. Like this guy right here says EIF is worth EIR in 5k plat, or EIF for 20k plat, which equates to around 1,500 Robux. So trust me, sell these while they are valuable, because they are not going to be valuable for long, in my opinion. And of course, this also goes with like all of the spare Akuma. Like I have a bunch of this Akuma that I really don't even need. So I'm going to try my best to get rid of these and trade them for items which will maintain their value. Because everything from this dungeon, it will be losing 100% of its value when the next dungeon drops. But ladies and gentlemen, I have another video on the screen for you guys, so definitely go check it out because I think you'll probably like it. And for now, I'll see you guys later.